The international war alert has only increased in recent years, but especially in recent months. And before, we were witnessing a constant rise in tension between Russia and Ukraine, with the involvement of some countries from the European Union. Now, the one who seems to want to join the war party directly is the uncle. The Trump administration seems to want to confirm it with every detail. He changes the name of the Department of Defense so that it is now called the Department of War. He intensifies his rhetoric toward the Russian Federation, even going so far as to call its army a paper tiger. And he sends messages, each one more warlike than the last, even going so far as to say that the United States is preparing for war. That's right, just like that. And, they claim, they do it because what they really want is peace. While they are about to approve the delivery of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, which is supposed to mark a turning point in the Ukrainian conflict, that's right, we're going to use this last message precisely to answer the key question. Is the United States, and in particular the Trump administration, really prepared for a real war? Or are the ones who are actually being paper tigers themselves? Let's start from the beginning. The warmongering messages at the international level keep intensifying, with a very special peculiarity. Now, the one who has joined this war party is none other than Donald Trump himself, and therefore Uncle Sam, who seems to be preparing for an armed conflict. It's still not very clear with whom or against whom. One of the most direct messages in this regard was delivered by none other than the United States Secretary of War at the last meeting he had with high-ranking officers at the United States base in Quantico, Virginia.
To ensure peace, we must prepare for war. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: preparing for war and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war. No one here wants war, but it's because we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens. They deserve peace. They rightfully expect us to deliver it.
We prepare for war because we want peace. And we're going to start by getting rid of the fat ones in our army. Because if we can't provide functionality, at least let's provide a good image. The message is very clear. We are a great power for whom image is absolutely everything, to the point that one, at a certain moment, could even doubt the seriousness of the American intentions, just like the existence of certain submarines that Donald Trump has recently described.
We're a little bit threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. We have
sent our most lethal nuclear submarine to Russia, an undetectable threat, and therefore it could even be invisible. In any case, besides the threat of this terrible ultra-destructive submarine that still has yet to be found, not only by the Russian Federation, but it could even be by the United States itself. There is a very real threat that is looming more and more over the Ukrainian conflict, and it has to do with the delivery by the United States of long-range Tomahawk missiles directly to Ukraine. Yes, so that they can attack deep inside Russian territory with them. A very serious and extremely dangerous threat that could take the conflict to the next level, experts say. And we're going to analyze it now because, wow, it could be, once analyzed rigorously, it might not be so after all. So, while Donald Trump reflects on the brilliant idea of selling Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine with European taxpayers' money, let's see how and under what conditions they could actually be launched against the territory of the Russian Federation, or not. First of all, some technical features. The long-range subsonic Tomahawk, designed to attack both land and sea targets at low altitude. Depending on the modification, its range varies between 1,000 and 1,600 kilometers, which is infinitely more than the Attic MS and the Storm Shadow, which Ukraine now has, and are capable of reaching about 250 to 300 kilometers. But the key question isn't, how lethal is the Tomahawk missile or not? But rather, how could Ukraine itself use it against Russian territory? In this sense, it's important to mention that these missiles were originally designed to be launched from the sea. Here we should mention submarines and destroyers, neither of which Ukraine has. The United States could, in theory, sell Ukraine a submarine or a... The chances of this happening are extremely low. Even lower, I think, are the chances that, in the absence of Ukrainian means, those missiles would end up being launched against Russia by the United States itself. And the thing is, the latest incidents that have occurred in NATO airspace, whether it's drones or planes, supposedly belonging to the Russian Federation, it seems, have clearly shown that Ukraine, directly through military means. The maritime launch, of course, is by no means the only option, since the United States developed it at the time. The air-launched version of the Tomahawk, known as the air-to-ground missile, 109 TALCM, weighs about 1,500 kilos, and not just any fighter jet can carry such a military device. In fact, the aircraft in question has not yet been found, since a series of tests were being carried out with the B-2 Spirit strategic bomber. But these tests had to be canceled, as I understand it, due to a lack of results in 1999. Even if the Americans had successfully completed that project, I highly doubt they would have been willing to offer Ukraine one of their 19 available bombers. The only remaining options, therefore, have to be land-based launches, but there aren't too many left, specifically 2. The first possibility has to do with mobile launch systems. Typhoon, a system of 5 somewhat bulky vehicles, but one that could indeed be dismantled and transported. Typhoon transported to Ukraine. It would be much more easily detectable by the Russian Federation than, for example, the high-mobility artillery rocket system, which, by the way, Russia can now detect perfectly. It would therefore be quite an easy target. But as a possibility, it's there, though with a tiny caveat. It turns out that currently, the United States only has 2 Typhoon systems. One is in the Philippines to put pressure on China, on a front that is now much more important for the United States than the Ukrainian front. The other one is supposed to be deployed in Germany in 2026. So just deploying the Typhoon system in Ukraine would already take quite a long time. But in addition to this, you would also have to add at least the necessary training for the Ukrainian soldiers, who in theory are going to operate it. In other words, another possibility that's quite unlikely. The last one, and also the most exotic of the launch options. And the Tomahawk missiles are the use of a long-range fire system developed by the United States Marine Corps. It's a remotely controlled all-terrain vehicle with a single launch container for a Tomahawk or SM-6 missile. At the time, it was seen as a more mobile and affordable alternative to the considerably heavier and bulkier Typhoon, but it also didn't pass the test. Yes, the program was recently canceled due to its inadequacy for operating in harsh climates. And what if the climate on the United States coasts turned out to be hostile for these systems? I don't even want to tell you how extremely bad an idea it could be to take them to Ukraine. Other launch possibilities for the Tomahawk missile are not being considered at the moment. That is to say, Donald Trump either wasn't aware of everything I just told you, or, once again, he was simply bragging. He would do it, most likely to try to pressure the Russian Federation into signing a peace that is anything but advantageous for that country. In a rush and under pressure just because of a mere threat from the United States. But the key question, without a doubt, is whether we could actually apply the Tomahawk case to everything else. Of course, it's by no means a matter of underestimating the military power of the United States, but perhaps it is a matter of asking, to what extent is the Trump administration speaking in terms of real intentions, or rather, acting like a real paper tiger, capable of biting anyone and as hard as it wants, but only and exclusively in media terms?